Okay, we're gonna try this, hopefully. I'm hoping it doesn't start raining in the middle of my video. So I did a video yesterday about your Book of Shadows, and because I tend to ramble, it got cut off a little short. And I had quite a few other things to show you. So I'm gonna follow it up with kind of a part 2 on how to be creative with your Book of Shadows, because there's so many good ideas. First of all, again, I always say look at thrift shops. Now is the time for garage sales and yard sales if you have garage sales around you. I have a garage sale app that shows me the garage sales that are around me. Now, I haven't done a whole lot of garage sailing this year, which is very unusual for me. But when I do go garage sailing, I look at the people who put up some pictures of what they have. And there's specific things that I look for. I look for people who have a lot of candles, craft items, of course, anything, obviously I've actually seen and gone into the city like a half an hour away for a garage sale that I saw had a tarot deck. That doesn't happen very often though, let's be honest. But if you keep an eye out for pictures, you can kind of get a sense of what kind of person they are, and are they going to have stuff that you may be able to use. With craft stuff, I especially look for scrapbooking items, because scrapbooking stuff, like I said, now I use scrapbook paper for my actual Book of Shadows, because they're beautiful pages, and it creates a really nice background for your Book of Shadows. And then all the little stuff that they have for scrapbookers can then be used in your Book of Shadows. Such as, if you do a page about your goals as a witch, they have little stickers that say hopes and dreams and butterflies and encourage. So if you do an affirmation page about spells of beauty for yourself, inner and outer, how to feel as good as you look, or how to look as good as you feel. Believe. Love is all you need. So perhaps a page on love potions. Believe. Sweet memory. So let's say you had a great Sabbath with your family, or with your coven, or just with yourself, and you took a couple pictures of an altar that you really worked hard on and turned out beautifully. Print those out, put them in your Book of Shadows under that Sabbath. Here's, look, butterflies. So if you did one for spring spells, or spring house cleaning tips, put rosemary in your bucket of floor wash, and that will help to energetically clean your house. You make me happy. So for your goddess, there's a feather there. So one of my patron goddesses is Maat, the Egyptian goddess of justice, and one of her symbols is a feather. Isis, her feather comes out of her cap. Or cap. Or am I talking about Yankee Doodle Dandy? It's hot out here and humid. Magic. I actually got 2 of these because I used that sticker in my opening page here. My personal dedication. I have that magic sticker. Oh, the key. The key is a symbol for the goddess Hecate. So if you have a page about the goddess Hecate, you could stick the key in there. Anything to make it your own, to make it something interesting to look at, pretty, to make you be aware of, you know, what that meant to you. Again, I talked about the scrapbook paper. I found last year, the year before, this little like sample of Halloween scrapbook paper, and I have used a few of these pages to write a spell on and put it in my Book of Shadows. Or look, there's a web. So if you're spinning a web of a spell, there's spiders. So if you are doing a page for the goddess Arachne, use the spider. Look, there's skulls and they say boo. Anything, to me, anything that makes your Book of Shadows more personal and more interesting can be put into your Book of Shadows. These are stickers, and again, most of this stuff, anything I do as far as scrapbook stuff, there's a couple things that I do. One is look at garage sales for people who are crafters. I hate to say this, it sounds, but it's not. It's the way the world works. I look for, I can tell usually when it's an estate sale of a woman who has died who was a big crafter. Usually they have tons, bins and bins of stuff that they just want to get rid of. And so you can buy a bulk, like a lot of craft items and scrapbook favors and stuff like that for a fairly good price. The stickers and the stuff for your scrapbook, I look at Walmart in their, they usually have an aisle or two of clearance that is marked way down like $1. And a lot of times, 90% of the time, they have some scrapbooking, either the stickers or journals, or they usually have something in there that is on clearance, and so you can look through that. Is any of that something I can use? These kind of stuff, Michaels and Joann Fabrics and Hobby Lobby, although I won't shop there because of their their homophobic tendencies and their need to not pay for birth control for women. As far as I'm concerned, that's bullshit. So I don't shop there. But if you do, look at after holiday sales. Look for craft sales from them. I belong to Michael's app, and they send you, now the sun's coming out, I hope I'm not going to get washed out, but they'll send you, when they have a sale, they'll send you an update. So look for that kind of stuff. Another thing that I absolutely love, and I suppose I will tell you, although this has been my little secret for years, is old magazines and old books that are one of two things. One is either old children's poetry, or just poetry in general, or we call them over here, we have old little magazine called Ideals Magazine. Now these they started like in the 50s, I think, and as far as I know, were published all the way up until like 80 or 82. My grandmother actually had a whole bunch that I inherited, kinda. And I look through these every season. They have the Ideals, they have one for Christmas time, one for autumn time. I'm sure they have spring. The friendship part is usually the summer. So if you look at these old magazines and old, like I said, the old children's poetry books have really cute pictures and poems about nature and that kind of thing. When you are writing your own spells, when you decide it's time for you to start writing your own spells. Now, it took me a couple years to really get the hang of what I wanted to put into a spell and why. And I am a good writer, but I'm also lazy. So if I want to, I can write my own rhyming verses and stuff like that. But what you also can do is look at these old poetry books. Look at these old Ideals magazines. Reminisce. Reminisce is another one that I have. Hold on, that's Ideals. That I have old copies of Reminisce magazine, which is like the olden days. And there's all kinds of vintage pictures. Look at, they're cute. So that kind of stuff, those photos can be cut out. But they also have, in the Ideals magazine, poetry. Poetry that was done in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and a lot of them are about nature. And you can use those poems in your spells. Songs, you can use song lyrics in your spells. You know, get creative. You really need to think about. So here's one. I marked this one, so I must have wanted to read it. Called A Song of Friendship. And this particular one, oh shit. The date is in Roman numerals. So of course, then I really have to think about it. MCMXCV. So that is 75. I can't remember. I'm terrible with Roman numerals. I really have to look up on it and then. Anyways, so this is a little poem. It says, A Song of Friendship. I wish I had a special gift, words choice and diction fine, to tell you how I feel today, clean, stalwart friend of mine. Now imagine you can be talking to your guardians. You'll never know how much you've meant. Oh no, you know what? I marked this one because I thought of you guys. For me, this community, this YouTube community, this Facebook community, this witchy community, there's a hawk. How cool is that? Or is that an eagle? I wish I could flip my camera around and it's gone. Ooh, squirrel. Sorry, my ADD. Anyways, this community has meant so much to me, and when I read this, I thought of this community. You'll never know how much you've meant to me through trials and song. How in despair your faith and cheer conspired to make me strong. And how when we could not agree, your friendship never waned. You stood unmoved in confidence when others' ties were strained. And as I stroll in memory the old path steep and long, the road that yesterday seemed cruel, today flings back a song of fellowship and trust, of friendship tried and true, and in its harmonies I find the loyalty of you. Isn't that great? I love these old things. They also have, look, Ideals Family Recipes. And these are a lot of early fall type recipes. So I'll put them up there if you can see them. But there's recipes for harvest apple cake, chewy apple bars, apple cobblers, spiced applesauce bread, crumb-topped apple pie. Now, my grandmother was an incredible cook, but she did not write her recipes down. So there's a few that she taught me through the years, and there's some that I'll never be able to duplicate again because they just are gone. But look at, they have these gorgeous pictures and little poems and sayings and all kinds of things. I swear, oh, here we go. Look at the wheat field. That's a gorgeous backdrop for Lughnasadh. for today. By the way, blessed Lughnasadh. I meant to say that first. I don't know. Phew, my brain. Here we go. So here's one of the poems that I thought, wow, that would be a great poem to put into my Lughnasadh section in my Book of Shadows. It's called The Basket of Harvest. And I'll show you a lot of these, and I will tell you ahead of time, a lot of these old poems and stuff have God in them. And if you don't want to put God in your Book of Shadows, although you are welcome to also, I'm not one that has God singular in my Book of Shadows because that's not how I see my divine entities. But just make a substitution. I'll show you what I mean. The basket of harvest is long and it's wide. It's woven with birdsong and bright butterflies. The basket of harvest is fragrantly filled with scents of wildflowers God planted at will. So I would just substitute that for the basket of harvest is fragrantly filled with scents of wildflowers Gaia planted at will. The basket of harvest is laden with fruit, with grains and plump berries for me and for you. I thank Gaia for giving this gift of great worth. Here's my garbage truck, of course. The basket of harvest, the fields of the earth. So keep your eyes out. There is stuff everywhere that you can use in your Book of Shadows, in your spell workings, in your, what is gold? I love the vintage pictures and stuff I've cut out of these magazines and put them in my Book of Shadows. I think that is just a fabulous way to keep some of these old things alive and be able to use them throughout the years. And when I look at them, I think of my grandma. I think of, you know, times past. I'm grateful for the life that I've lived up until now. There's just so much information out there, and you just have to tweak it to your use. You don't have to, you know, throw out everything that says God in it. If that doesn't speak to you anymore, change it to Gaia, change it to Goddess, change it to Guardians, change it to whatever you want to change it to. It still speaks to you. Remember that whoever wrote that had a great love for their divine, just like we have a great love for our divine. It's the same difference. It's just we're looking at things from a different angle. That's all. It's as far as I'm concerned, that's all. So, let me go over real quickly to end up, because we're already 18 minutes. God, I'm a rambler. Sorry, guys. So if you're going to have pages about your goddess or your gods, which I recommend once, like I said, you've started working with your goddess and god, you want to put their name, which seems kind of obvious, but it's important that you know how to pronounce their name. Now, that's a little bit easier now than when I started. So stuff like Mayat, M-A'-A-T, people say it differently a million different ways. Some people say Mat, some people say Mayat, some people say Ma'at. How does she like it pronounced? For me, it has become Mayat, and that's how I pronounce it. If I learn differently that it's definitely pronounced some other way, I will try it out, and if I feel like she likes that way better, then I will pronounce it that way. Test it out with your gods and goddesses, though, because, you know, we didn't used to have the internet that we could type in how do you pronounce this thing and it would read it back to you. And even then, sometimes I think, yeah, right, I don't know if they really know what they're talking about, how to pronounce it. No idea. So then you want to put like their attributes. Sorry guys, I'm chewing on a hot ball. I apologize. But you want to have what powers or characteristics are they really associated with? So if you're working with Athena, it would be like love and health, and include the secondary faculties that have changed over time. So it used to be they were much more associated with grain, and now it seems that, you know, it's kind of evolved a little, and now it's something a little different. You want to look at their cultural context. Write down, like for me, again, I'll use Maat as my example. She is an Egyptian goddess. So when they talked about Maat, how did they talk about her? Well, at the time, they saw her as a doorway to the underworld. So when they died, you would have to go to Maat, and she had the scales, and she had her feather on one side of the scales, and your good works would be piled on the other side. And if it evened out, then you were allowed to go into the underworld. If it didn't, then something was wrong. How does this god or goddess look? Again, how does it look to you? I have lots of pictures of Maat, and probably that is how I picture her for the most part. But sometimes she comes to me with a striking, like lapis lazuli colored hair, that gorgeous royal blue colored hair. And so when I picture her, for some reason that royal feeling comes over me, and then not always does she come to me with that color hair, but that's, you know, something that is very distinct that I can write in my book of shadows when Maat comes to me, and sometimes she has this striking royal blue colored hair. And do I notice anything about that time when she comes to me with that? Is it more about justice, or is it more about finding balance? Sacred things. What things are sacred to them? What plants are sacred to them? What incenses are sacred to them? What oils are sacred to them? And when you're first starting out, you come with a list. Again, look at my Pinterest page, look at others' Pinterest page. You know, there are tons of, I'm not going to say that I have the best Pinterest page out there, but I have worked for years on my Pinterest page, so most likely I have something in there about it. Whether you can find it or not is a whole nother thing, but you are welcome to use it. Of correspondences, and that's where your correspondences in your Book of Shadows comes through again. You know, what oils are generally thought of to be sacred to this god or goddess. Traditional offerings. What did people used to offer to her? And what has she asked you to offer to her? Sometimes those things are very different. Sometimes they're very similar. Sometimes they're, you know, pretty things and sparkly things, and sometimes they're milk and honey and water. So, you know, weigh out what you feel that your goddess or god is telling you to bring. And their skills and careers. Did this god or goddess protect any particular group of people? Farmers, craftsmen, people, tax collectors, lawyers, or the lawyers of the day. Did they protect women, mothers, people going into childbirth? You know, there was different gods and goddesses for different things. So if so, try to support the same groups and honor their god or goddess in the process. So if Maat is my patron goddess, then I might try to give to associations that deal with equality and justice. Okay. So again, just this is your grimoire, your Book of Shadows. Make it your own. Have the herbs and crystals that you have the herbs and crystals that you want. What characteristics and uses do they have? Your spells. Again, I would recommend having a couple different Books of Shadows. One that you start out with, and then one saying, I've actually worked with this, and this for me is what works. Okay? So I hope I didn't, you know, repeat too many things there, but I just didn't want to end it when I didn't tell you some of the great ideas that I had, and I'm going to be doing another video today because it is Lunasa, we're going to read Rupert's Tales for this holiday. So yay! Blessings! Blessed Lunasa.